Thanks for showing up. What I've got for you guys is a new indicator. I know a lot of you have been wanting to do Fibonacci stuff automated inside of BloodHound. So what I've had built is this auto fib retracement indicator based on swings so that you can set whatever strength for the swing indicator that you want to use. So let's say, let me just add that indicator onto the chart first and then kind of tell you a little bit about how this works. So we're using just the normal swing indicator that comes with BloodHound. I'll set this to 36. Let's make the swing high a little bit darker. And the low, let's make it dark red. There we go. Okay, so essentially, well, this doesn't, the swing indicator back paints to the pivot that it's marking, but the fib indicator, you can see that this swing low right here that we're looking at was put in where this fib indicator, this is the 100% line, it gets put in where this 100% line moves up from the low here to this swing level. So essentially what's happening is, let's just start right here, for example. So we have the cyan line is the 38.2%, the silver is the 50, the 61.8 is in gold, okay, because that's the golden ratio, so we have that colored in gold. The 78.6 is in orange red. So when the 50 is below the 61.8, the trend is down. Okay, and the trend is going to be down if we're breaking out to new lows. So if we're breaking out of the 0% line, which is in blue here, let me just take this swing indicator off because I don't really need it to explain what's going on. So if the market is coming down to new lows, the 0% line will be at the low, be marking the low. Okay, and then the 100% line will be marking the closest swing high that's identified by the swing indicator. Does everybody understand kind of how this is working? So we're using identified swings in the market and new lows or new highs within the swing period, basically, to identify the swing high and the swing low. And then we're drawing the fibs accordingly. So if I were to set this now from a setting of 36 back down to 12, which is the default setting, you'll see I'll be drawing fibs a lot tighter together, so marking some of these smaller swings, some of these smaller swing highs and lows. Okay, so it's up to you to decide whether you want to use a larger setting or a smaller setting. But what you can do with this also is, let's say we're looking at, let's just leave this one at 12, and then I'll add another one, and I'll show you guys where you can download this from in a moment. And let's set this one to 30. Well, let's set it to 32. So we have one, a larger one at 32, and then a smaller one at 12. So what you can do with this is you can find where the fibs are overlapping. So if you're looking for confluence zones, let's say the market is going up, you've got a swing, the initial swing high, let's say it goes up to here. And then you've got the wave 2 coming down, then you've got wave 3, and then wave 4. Let's say you're trying to identify this wave 4, and you want to see when the larger swing pulls back to 38.2, and then the smaller swing pulls back to 50% right here. So you want to see where these two are overlapping, and that'll be the typical wave 4 retracement if you know anything about Elliott wave. And you want to try to identify that area so that when the market pulls back to that zone, you could then initiate a long from that fib confluence zone. Okay, so that's how you'll be able to do this sort of a thing by using using the indicator twice with two different settings, with two different strength settings. Okay, but let's not get into that just yet. Let's take the smaller one off and just leave the one set to 32 on there. So you can see as the market is going up, we're marking the new highs at 0%, and then the swing low is 100%, and there's the 61% retracement. So you can clearly see that. 61%, 61.8. And then as we go up to new highs, this 100% will move up to the next swing low, and then we have a retracement here down to the 78.6. So that's what we're using this for, to identify these retracement zones automatically, so that we can now use fibs inside of BloodHound. Okay, and if you want to go and download this right now, just go to my site here. This is trade-the-plan.com. Go to the free downloads right here, and then NinjaTrader indicators, and I'll put this in the chat box. And it will be the first indicator at the top. So let me just copy and paste this. Let's see. Okay, so I've just put that into the chat window, and you'll have to first sign up. So if you're not signed in and you try to click on the download link here, a page will come up, I think. Let me just sign out and make sure exactly what this looks like. Well, no, I know exactly what it does. It just brings you to a page that asks you to sign up because you don't have an account yet, or sign in. So you can either sign in or create your account. Just put your email in, first name and last name, and then just a password. And then you'll be able to download it. Okay, so everybody can have access to that for free. And now let's do this. Let's go through and try to come up with some different conditions that we might want to identify using this indicator in BloodHound. So let's just do this. Let's say we want to identify this 61.8% retracement, and we want to initiate a long trade right there on that reversal bar from the 61.8 retracement. Okay, so what we're going to do, how many of you are brand new to BloodHound? You don't really know how to get around BloodHound very well, and this is all Greek to you right now. Are there any brand new users? Just give me a Y if you're brand new. Yeah, there are. Okay. Okay, let's just run through briefly. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there are a lot of other videos that will help you get up and running, but let me just remove it and then show you exactly what we're going to do step by step. So I have the indicator window open. I'm going to scroll down, tap the S key, scroll down to SI BloodHound, add that to the chart. So now we have the BloodHound output in the lower panel, and we have the empty template up at the top. So when I click on the empty template, it opens the BloodHound user interface. And this is where we're going to build the solvers for the conditions, for the trade rules that we want to develop around this indicator. Okay? So what I do usually is go immediately to the Logic tab and then click on New and just start building directly in the Logic tab, because everything that I build, I'll end up needing the function nodes and the logic nodes. So rather than starting off here on the Solvers tab, I just immediately go to the Logic tab, because that's where I'm going to end up anyway. So what we want to do is we want to identify this bar. Okay, but first what we need to do is we need to identify the trend of the indicator. Is the 50% line above or below the 61.8? If the 50% is above the 61.8, then the trend is up. Well, what you'll see when you load this indicator into BloodHound is that there's a data series assigned to the trend of the indicator. So let me just show you that now And anytime there's a data series that has a trend setting or a bull, we can easily access that with an indicator threshold, and I'll go over that with you now. So I just right-click, add the indicator threshold, and then add here under indicator, SMA 14. I'm going to open this window up, scroll down to the T's. It's going to be the TTP Auto Fib Retracement indicator right here. And I'm going to set this now to 32. And when you scroll down to the bottom, you see this data series named trend. So we'll select long and short for that data series. Click OK. And then 1, it gives us a value of 1 for a long trend, for an uptrend, and then a value of -1 for the downtrend. So what I'm going to do, just remember in the threshold, for the threshold solver, these numbers need to always be in ascending order. So from the lowest number at the bottom to the highest number at the top. So if I have 1 and -1, I need -1 at the bottom, +1 at the top. And I want to get a long signal out of this when the indicator is giving me a value of 1 for an uptrend out of that data series. So I set that to 1, and then when the indicator is in an uptrend, I get all green bars out of BloodHound, and that is signaling to me that we're going to be allowed to take long trades only during these bars that are colored green. And then when I set -1 for the short output, we're going to use -1 out of that data series to identify the downtrend. Then you'll see when it's in a downtrend, we now have all red bars. So BloodHound is identifying for us when this indicator is in a downtrend with all red and when it's in an uptrend with all green. Okay, so we've just identified the trend. So now what we want to do is we want to identify the bars that have retraced through the 61.8. So what do we need to do? We need to say, well, we need to access the data points on that bar, and we need to compare, let's say, whether the low for a long signal, whether the low is below the 61.8, and then for a short, whether the high is above the 61.8 for a short. So what I need to do is I need to identify the low for longs, the high for shorts, and then that 61.8% line. So what am I doing? I'm doing a comparison. I'm comparing the low or the high of the bar to that 61.8, so I need to use the comparison solver. So I go back to the green board, right-click, add the comparison solver, and remember we want the low for a long. We want that low to be below the 61.8. So in order to access any of the data points on the bar, we need to bring in what's called the SI chameleon indicator. Okay, and when you're using the comparison solver, you usually, just for best practices, you want to use the faster output in indicator A. So anytime you're using price relative to something else, price relative to an indicator, or the current bar relative to the previous bars, you want to use price in indicator A. You want to use the faster plot in indicator A and the slower plot, or the indicator, in indicator B. So I'm going to use price for indicator A. I need to access the SI chameleon to access the data points on the bar. And like I said, we want to use low for long and then the high for short. We want to identify when that low is below the 61.8 for the long. Click OK. And then now for indicator B, I'm going to bring in the fib auto retracement indicator here. And we have a setting of what, 32, I believe. And then I just access the 61.8 here. Okay, so now when I connect it, we're getting the opposite output. It's because I'm looking at, for the long output, I'm looking at when A is greater than B. This is really important that you understand the comparison. I think if you're brand new to BloodHound, you need to focus a lot of your initial attention on mastering the comparison solver, because the comparison solver is the one that you're going to be using, I would say, the most if you're going to be trying to build multiple different systems, testing different ideas. You'll end up using the comparison solver, I think, more often than any other solver. And really understanding the way this works between A and B, long output and short, where you have A greater than B by 0 ticks or more, and then neutral, and so on. Really getting in and understanding how this works is going to kind of catapult you into a full understanding of BloodHound much more quickly than if you just kind of gloss over each individual solver first, and then you just kind of end up losing that information. You need to really focus in on one solver at a time, start with a comparison solver, and really learn it backwards and forwards. And understanding, like I said, between the difference between the A and the B and the long output and the short is really going to kind of give you a good initial head start to this, to learning how to use BloodHound. So the reason why I have long output instead of, well, essentially I have long output on every single bar that I want to have no output on, and then on the bar that I want to have the long output on, I have no output whatsoever. So I'm kind of getting the reverse output, and that is because I have these numbers backwards. I want to show when the low is below the 61.8 for a long. So that means A less than B. So I need to change these to 0 and then change this one to 1. And now it's identifying that bar right there where the low is below the 61.8% line. Does everybody see that? So now I need to flip this output as well. I need to set these to 0 and then set this one to 1 right here. High for short. Hang on a second here. Right, and then what's going to eliminate all of these short bars here is connecting the trend. So when I connect both of these together, and I'll come back and name these in a second, when I connect both of these together, then I'll have the correct output for that bar right there. Does everybody see that? Let me name these solvers really quickly. So this is the trend. This is the fib trend. And this is the high above. Let's just do this. High and low, above or below 61.8. Okay, so if the low is below 61.8, we get a long. If the high is above it, we get a short. But only in agreement with the overall trend. So when I connect this one by itself, you can see I'm getting short output when the high is above the 61.8. But I don't want to allow shorts when the fib trend is up. It should make sense. So that's why I use the AND logic. I want both of these to be true at the same time. I want to only allow longs out of this when we're getting longs out of this. Is everybody with me so far? Is anybody lost or confused? If you guys have any questions as we're going along, just let me know. Ken, you're lost and confused? Do that again. Okay, which part are you not getting? Which indicator was it for the trend? The same indicator. So I'm using the fib indicator for the trend. So remember, if the 50% is above the 61.8, the trend is up. All right, that means I have 0% at the top, 100% at the bottom. Remember, 0 is blue, 100% is dark blue, navy. So if 0 is at the top and 100% is at the bottom, the trend is up. Okay, that's why here, when I add this indicator, there's a data series down here at the bottom that's named trend. So that gives me a positive 1 value when the trend is up, when the 0 is above the 100. And it gives me a value of negative 1 when the trend is down, when the 0 is below the 100. Again, I have delineated which are which by color, but I haven't done that with a number. So the gold is the 61.8. The 50 is the silver. You see? Well, I haven't done that, Kim. That's not built into the indicator. This is the way the indicator works, by color. So you've got 61.8 for the gold. The 50 is silver. I mean, this should be relatively straightforward. The market's going up. The 50 is above the 61.8. So we have it drawn like so. This is the fib. We've got the 50 here at silver. We've got gold for 61.8, cyan for 38.2. You see? If it's going down, then we've got the 50 below the 61.8, and we're coming down. Let's say we're marking this high and this low right there. 61.8 is gold, 50 silver, 38.2 cyan. No problem, Ken. But yeah, I haven't used numbers to label the lines, just the colors to label the lines. And I know this is brand new for you guys, so it'll probably take a little while to get the hang of, but let's just kind of keep rolling along, and you can refer back to this video later. I don't want to spend too much time on each individual thing. I want to try to get through several different conditions, and then you guys can come back and watch this video as much or as little as you like. John, yeah, right. Gold for golden ratio. Exactly. So now, Richard was asking which solver is that. So anytime we want to access a data series, let's say for trend, a data series that gives us +1 for a long, -1 for a short, we'll use the threshold solver. Okay, and then we just set the threshold here. We'll set 1. Remember, it's 1 for longs, 1 for an uptrend, -1 for a downtrend. So we'll set that +1 here for A, -1 for E. Remember, this always has to be in ascending order, lowest at the bottom, highest at the top. And like I said, an uptrend is set to 1. So we give BloodHound's long output a value of 1 when the data series is yielding the value of 1. If you're brand new to this, I know this can be a little bit heavy trying to really understand what's going on here, but once you understand this, well, obviously it makes more sense when you understand it, but just it takes a little time to get the hang of this. But as you start building solvers and you're building different conditions for different indicators, you'll get the hang of this. Trust me, it shouldn't take too long if you're spending enough time, a half hour a day or something like that, just really trying to get in here and test different ideas, build different conditions for different indicators. Okay, so when I connect that, every time the 50 is above the 61.8, we'll have nothing but longs. Every time the 50 is below the 61.8, every time the silver is below the gold, we'll have shorts. Okay? So that's how that works. And then the next one that we built was the comparison solver, where we're looking for, is the low of the bar below the 61.8? If it is, give me a long. If the high of the bar is above the 61.8, give me a short. So you see what that does, and let's just take this a little bit further, which will be a condition that we'll probably use later, but let's say, where are we at? Back here on this bar. You see what that does. If the low is below the 61.8, while at the same time the high of the bar is above that gold line, that 61.8, we're going to get both a long output and a short output on the same bar. You see that? That's why that bar is colored brown there. because we have both green and red on the same bar. John is asking, a double top or double bottom has no effect on trend. That's not the way I've built this indicator, John. We're just using the swings indicator. So I'm not concerned with, at this point, trend based on double tops or double bottoms or anything like that. I'm just using the trend based on this indicator itself. So if the 50 is above the 61.8, the trend is down. If the 50 is below the 61.8, the trend is up. That's it. And then we can come back and add in double tops and double bottoms and swings and whatever we want, super trend, any moving averages, as a confirmation for whatever we want to, whatever system we want to build. So we can add in as many different trend conditions as we like here. All right, but what you see when we have the high above but the low below, when the high is above we have shorts, when the low is below we have longs. So we're identifying the bars that are straddling that line by both a long and a short at the same time. If I want to single out just that bar that is touching the 61.8, here's what I can do. I can take this solver and then eliminate all of the bars on which we have only shorts and then all of the bars on which we have only longs, and I can do that with this function node called the long short modifier. So what I want to do is I want to multiply the BloodHound output here. I want to multiply the long output times the short output. So remember, if you see red bars, that means the short output is set to 1. If you see green bars, that means the long output is set to 1. So if you see only red, that means there's no output for the longs, so that means the output for the long is 0. If I multiply 0 times 1, what do I get? I get 0, right? If I multiply 1 times 1, what do I get? I get 1. So when you use the product here for the mode, see we have all of these different modes here. I'm really only interested right now in the product. I want to multiply the two outputs together. So when I do that, I'll be left with only those bars on which I have both long and short output. So that's a way to identify, to single out that bar. And then we can, well, we can do a number of different things. We could say that we only want to take the signals where the bar is actually touching the 61.8, or any other line, or we could do a lot of different things with this. But that's one way that you can identify just that bar that is actually touching the line. And then if you want to set a range above or below, let's get into the comparison solver just a little bit here. Anytime you want to set a range, that's always going to be the small amount here. All right, just remember this. The more you have the one up at the top that says ticks or more, and the one at the bottom that says ticks or more. These two that say more are associated with the large amount. So large, more. Okay, the small amount are these three in the middle. So anytime you're using a range, let's say we want to mark a bar where the low is within, I don't know, let's use 2 ticks. So we'll set 2 ticks here for the small amount. And then I have to now use, let me just click off of it and click back on it. See, when I use 2 for the small amount, it updates for these. Okay, A minus B is neutral. A minus B is going to be the small amount. So we want to allow well, actually A minus B is 0, and then we're allowing the range from 0 to 2 ticks. So that will show us anytime there's a bar that is within 2 ticks from the line now. If I were to increase this, let me just set it up for the long side also. So if I were to increase this, and let's say 10 ticks, then I'll start to show more bars here. That may not have been enough. Let's say 20 ticks. Then it will show this bar and this bar as well. You see? So anytime I want to set a range from the price bar or any other indicator versus another indicator, and I'm comparing the two, and I want to use a range, I'll use the small amount and this neutral and this one, A less than B by X number of ticks, and that X number of ticks or N number of ticks is the small amount right here. Okay? Kind of a little bit more of a advanced condition, but nonetheless, you guys need to learn this stuff because this is one that I use quite often in just about every system that I build. All right, so let's get rid of that. Let's just say, let's leave it at 2 ticks. So we'll identify these bars that are within 2 ticks of that line. So let's say we want to keep on using this condition. And then I'll connect it here. So you see what happened? With this condition, I'm getting both long and short output. But when I connect this solver on top, which is the fib trend, and I'm getting only longs out of it, I'm going to be left with only those bars on which I'm getting signal out of this, but now I'm going to be left with only the long output because there's no short output out of this one. You see? So that means both of these conditions must be true at the same time, this one and this one, when we use the AND logic. Okay, and now let's say I want the bar, because this is a range chart, range bars are always closing either on the high or the low. Let's say we only want to get long signals when the high is, when the close is closing on the high. First, let's do this. Let's save this. We'll save this as a fib retracement. Set this to entry. And now we want to build another solver that looks at the close, the current close versus the current high and low. So I'll use another comparison solver. And rather than using, I could use the bar direction solver. But the problem with this is, what if it's a doji? What if we have, well, let's connect the bar direction solver. So I've just gone up to the solver nodes. We have all of these different solvers. I've selected the first one in the list, the bar direction. And I'll just connect that as it works by default. And you'll see I'm getting a long when the bars are green. I'm getting a short when the bars are red. But what's going to happen is if there's ever a bar on which we have a doji, we have the open and the close at the same price. You see this bar? We're not going to get direction out of that bar because there is no direction, because the close is equal to the open. So what we can do to get around that for the range bars is we can use the comparison solver. We'll set indicator A to closing price, indicator B to the high and the low. Remember, to access the high and the low, we need the chameleon. So if the close equals the high, we'll get a long. If the close equals the low, we'll get a short. And what I need to do now is select the neutral amount right here. So I just want to show when the high, when the close is equal to the high, when the close is equal to the low. So I need to change that for the short output now. So essentially what this is telling us is it's telling us that the close is A minus B is neutral. So A minus B, small amount is 0 ticks. So when the close is within 0 ticks to the high or the low, if it's 0 ticks, the close is 0 ticks to the high. Essentially, if the close equals the high, we get a long. If the close equals the low, we get a short. All right, so I'll just set this to close equal the higher the low. And then I'll get rid of the bar direction solver and connect this to the AND logic. Okay, so now you can see we have a short right here because the bar, we're in a downtrend. The 50 is below the 61.8. The bar is touching the 61.8, the gold line, and it's closed on its low. So that's why we have a short signal right there on that bar. And then here, the trend flips right here because we've broken up above the previous 100% line. So we have a bar that breaks above that. So the trend flips. Now the 50 is above the 61.8, so the trend is up. Excuse me, we pulled back down to the 61.8. This bar is touching the 61.8 and it's closed on its highs. That's why we have a long signal right there on that bar. Okay, and then as I scroll out here, there we have another long signal right here because the trend is up. The 50 is above the 61.8. We pulled back. We're touching the 61.8, and then the bar is closing on its high. Okay, this is something I want to avoid right here. You see this area? So at this point, the trend is still up. I can't say I like 100% the way this indicator works. I don't think, I'm going to make a couple of changes to it. This is kind of a preliminary version of this indicator anyhow, but let me just kind of cover something really quickly. Let me delete this. Here's one thing I don't like about this indicator. Okay, we're starting back here. This is 0. I'm sorry, this is 100%. Starting right here, actually. So this line right here to the right, the trend is up. We have 0 at the top, 0 is in blue. We have 100% on the low, which is navy. So the trend is up. What I don't like is that we're moving the swing up to here. So we're moving from this bar right here to this bar right here, which is being marked from this low. So this 0%, 100% line right here is marking this swing. And it's doing that before we've broken out to new highs. So I think what I'm going to modify this to do is not shift up to the next swing until we've broken out to new highs, because you see what happens, all it does is it just kind of compresses the retracement, which obviously this is not exactly how you would draw a fib. I mean, you wouldn't draw a retracement from right here back to here. If anything, you would draw it the other way around. You draw it from the high to the low, for any of you guys that actually use the fibs. So I think I'm going to have to change that. Richard's asking, since we register on my site, would we get any alert or just check back on your site for version? Yeah, I'll send out an email when I update it. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Let's see. So I wanted to eliminate this from happening right here. This bar. So I only want to get a reversal bar from the 61.8. I don't want to just go straight through it and then take a long trade. That's not what I'm looking for. And actually, I don't want to allow these longs either, because this isn't quite, let's see, how am I going to be able to do that? Let's first eliminate this bar, and then we'll work on these after that. So let's eliminate this bar now. I want, for a long, I want the previous bar to be down. So what I can do is I'll add that bar direction solver back. No, let's not do that. Here's what I'll do. I'll use a comparison solver and I'll look at the previous bar. If the previous bar closed on its low, then I'll give the current bar a long. And I'll explain this as I go. This might be a little more difficult for those of you that are newer. But let's say we'll home in on this bar right here. Because this bar is a down bar, I want to get a long signal on this bar. So that's what we're building right now. I'm looking one bar back, so I'm going to displace my indicators by one bar. And then we'll look at, here, let me just kind of walk you through it as I go. So I have a comparison solver. Let me do this. I'm going to copy this one. So when we copy a solver, we go back to the Solvers tab. I'm going to delete that. I want to copy this close equals high or low. So I click on copy, and then I go back to the logic board and I right-click, go up to existing solvers, and then add this solver to the chart, which is identical to this one, but now I can make changes to this one and it will not affect the first version of it. So we've made a copy and now we're going to make changes to this one. So what I want to do is I want to look back one bar. So I need to look at the closing price of the previous bar, and in order to do that I need to add in the chameleon because I need to displace it by one bar. So we open up the indicator window, scroll down to the chameleon once again, and we'll set this to the closing price. But now I'm going to displace this by one bar. Does everybody understand that? Because we're looking at the current bar, the previous bar. We're looking one bar back. If this is the bar we're looking at out of BloodHound, we're displacing that solver by one bar so that we're now looking at this bar. And now I want to displace the high and the low by one bar as well. So that, look at that, I'm not getting output. That's weird. Let me just update it. Oh, okay, I remember now. This is what happens. Sometimes when you use chameleon for both indicator A or B, and for some reason this happens more on crude oil and the ES. Sometimes you'll have to put in 1/10 of a tick right here. I don't know why it does that. But see, right now it's not saying that the previous close was equal to the low. But when I set this to 0.1 tick, you'll see that it does. I don't know why it does that. When I set it back to 0, we get no output. But when I set it to 0.1 ticks, so that's a good trick to remember if you run into this problem and you're wondering why you're not getting any output. Sometimes you have to set this to 0.1 ticks. Kind of strange, but what I want to do now,
Daniel,
is rather than... Oh, you can? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so even though, officially futures contracts always is supposed to trade exactly on the tick, oil is notorious for not doing that. If you look at the raw trade data coming in, you'll often see that oil will trade in 1/10 of a penny or 1/100th of a penny. I don't know how these traders are able to do that, but that's why. So the trade prices that are coming into your data feed aren't always rounded off to a penny. So sometimes you get 1/10 of a penny, and so that's why you don't get that neutral area working correctly. And that's because there's just a flaw. Traders are able to somehow get away with, not having to trade on the actual tick size.
Yeah, I've read about high frequency firms that's what they're doing. They're shaving off tenths of a tick.
Yeah, I don't know what the cause is, but you know where it comes from. But yeah, right. The ES, you know, you'll see sometimes, yeah, as you said, sometimes on the ES, people are able to, you know, you'll see raw price data coming in at, you know, 0.256, you know, some weird number like that. So, and it should be 0.25 only, but yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the reason why. So, you
So
know,
you think maybe this needs to be set to actually 0.4, just in case they round
um,
up?
you know, I really don't know how bad. I don't know how much how badly, you know, these big traders are able to kind of violate that tick size, but you know, I
Yeah.
think 0.1 ought to be sufficient for,
Okay.
you know, 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, it seems to work almost all the time that I've seen. Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to flip the output. So I want to get a long when the previous bar was down. So I want to flip these. I want to say if the close was equal to the low on the previous bar, give me a long. So I want to set low to long, high to short. So now I'm getting a long signal on this bar based on the previous bar being a down bar. Okay, so I'm going to say close displaced by 1 bar must be equal to, let's just flip this, we'll say low high displaced by 1 bar. So we're getting a long when the close of the previous bar was equal to the low of the previous bar. Okay, and then I'll connect that and you'll see what will happen. Let me just do this in a step-by-step. So this is what we originally had. It will eliminate this bar right here when I connect this. And it will also eliminate the bar that I wanted to eliminate. Let's disconnect it again. It will eliminate this bar right here. So now I'm only going to be able to get a long signal if the previous bar closed on its low. And what I'll have to do, see that? It eliminated that bar. And what I'll need to do now is make these solvers, because these are really only required for range charts, these two. So I'll make these an exception for range bars. So we'll say range bar exceptions, exception. And what I'll do now, let's switch it to a 1-minute chart, just so we can see how this kind of works on a minute chart as well. Whoa. Okay. Okay, let's say, let's look at this little area right here. Now we'll add in a closing price inflection for the 1 minute. And what I'll do, let me just show you this quickly. So this is the indicator inflection. This is showing us basically a pivot in any indicator or price or whatever. If the previous bar was sloping down and then the current bar slopes up, that's a change in direction, that's an inflection. Okay, so we'll add in the closing price inflection. You'll see that if the bars are sloping down, the bars are moving lower. Let me make this bigger. So we have these bars down, 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 and then the first bar that turns up, we get a long signal. And the next bar is up, no output. The very next bar is down, so it goes from up to down. That's an inflection, so we get a short right there. the next bar inflects up. That's the way this works. So it's showing us the reversal bar. This is a reversal back up. That's a reversal back down, reversal back up, back down, and so on. Okay, so let's say we want to only enter on a reversal bar for tick charts, minute charts, volume charts, any chart that has a bar with a differing size range that could close at any data point on the bar, whether that be the high, the median, or any tick in between, or the low. So let's name this closing price inflection. But here's the issue. So what if the bar that turns back up isn't actually touching the 61.8, but the previous bar was? Would we want to allow the long signal on that bar? Because the previous two bars were touching the 61.8. If we do want to allow that, what we're going to do is we're going to displace, or we'll look back one bar, well, essentially two bars. What we're going to do is we're going to extend this signal to the next bar. So we do that with a look back node, look back function node. This is good because you're getting to see a lot of different function nodes and solvers. So let's do that. Let's use a look back node. You see we have all of these different function nodes which allow us to manipulate the signals to arrive at the exact signal that we want on the exact bar that we want. Okay? So you may have to start off with an initial output that might be the opposite of what you want to end up with, and then manipulate it with these function nodes, or extend them forward, or push the signal forward, or all sorts of different things that you can do. So what we're going to do is, rather than displacing it, we want to just essentially extend that signal forward a bar. So we'll look back two bars, and we'll set this to maximum, the max. So on the previous bar, let's say we're looking at this bar right here. We're going to, this will be bar number 1 and bar number 2. So we're going to keep the maximum output for the long and the maximum output for the short independently for the past two bars. So when I connect this, it's going to keep the maximum output. What's the maximum output between this bar and this bar? Well, we have 0 on this bar, no signal whatsoever. But on the previous bar, we have an output of 1. Which one is larger, 1 or 0? Well, 1 is, right? So that's the maximum output. So that's the output that we'll keep on this bar. You see? So that's how that works. It's essentially, well, when you've set it to max, it works as a kind of a signal extender. Okay, so there's the original output. Now with a look back node, looking back two bars, which is really the current and the previous, set to max, we're extending that signal forward by a bar. Okay, so what I want to do now is add another AND node and then connect this closing price inflection. So that will show the signal now on only this bar, because that's the reversal bar, and the previous bar was touching the 61.8 with the trend up, and yep, with the trend up. Okay. Now this could be a problem right here. Do we want to allow that signal? You see, it's allowing this signal because this bar was down, and then it turns back up. So that's really a closing price inflection. And this bar and the previous bar were both touching the 61.8. Let's say we want to only allow one signal per swing. So when you look at this, let me zoom this together. Let's look at it this way. We have, it's not letting me use my hotkeys. We have one swing right here, where all the fibs are always the same level. Okay? Let's just kind of define a swing like that, where all the fibs are always the same level. Whoop. Then we have another swing here, where all the fibs are the same level. And then another one here. Let's say we want to only allow one trade, one signal per swing, per the number of bars where all the fibs are the same level. So how could we define that? Well, what we could look at when we could pick any number, we could pick any one of these fib lines, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the current fib relative to the fib 1 bar ago. If the line moves up or down, we'll use that as a reset for the signal blocker. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to block all of these subsequent signals. We're going to block this signal. We're going to block this one. Let me do this. Let me just erase everything. And I'll show you what we're going to do here. I need to add a toolbar shortcut if I have it on this machine, which I don't. We're going to block this signal, that signal, and this signal right here. So we'll allow the first signal to come through, and then we're going to block all of the subsequent signals until the fib shifts up or down, until any one of these fib lines shifts up or down. Let's say we use the 50% line. Okay? That's what we're going to do. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with a signal blocker, and then we're going to block all the subsequent signals until that fib shifts up or down in one direction or the other. So let's do that now. Let me first build the reset that we're going to use for the blocker. Here, let me just answer a couple of questions really quickly. I see some things coming in. John saying, I'm wondering if this will solve a problem with my speed tick indicator in BloodHound. You don't have to comment. Oh, sorry. I don't know if this is going to solve any problems for your speed tick indicator. Let's see. Secondary and tertiary refinements of using the auto fibs as presented. Please make recording of this available. Sure, yeah, of course, Ken. I'll get up the recording as soon as I can here. All right, let's get back to it. So we're going to reset the condition, reset the blocker, using the showing when the 50% line moves up or down from the previous one. So I need to add this into indicator A and B. So we add the auto fib retracement, set it to 32. We'll use the 50% line for A and the 50% line for B. But for B, we're going to displace it by 1 bar. I'm going to try to hurry up a little bit so I can get through a little bit more before I have to go. Okay, so we have 50% for A, 50% for B, but I'm going to displace B by 1. So you'll see that I'm going to be marking the bar on which the 50% line moves either up or down. But here's the thing, I want to get, well, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, it does. I want to get both a long and a short out of that bar. So I set all of the outputs. I really don't have to set this one, just to make it a little simpler. So if the current, let's say this is the current bar right here, if the current bar 50% line is above the previous bar's 50% line, as you can see it is, it's moved up from right here to right here. If it's above or below, we're going to get both a long and a short on that bar. Okay? So you'll see that every bar on which it shifts, we get a long and a short at on the same bar. That's why it looks brown, essentially. So every time it shifts, we get that signal. Now, I'm going to use that as the reset for the signal blocker. Let me name this 50% above or below 50%. Whoop. 50% of 1 bar ago. All right, now then, this is the signal blocker right here. So remember, these are the signals that we want to block. We want to block this one, this one, this one, and this one. Let's see. No, I want to block every single one of these, actually. Yep. I need to block all of these because these are not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a retracement down to the 61.8 for a long or up to the 61.8 for a short. So I want to get rid of all of these. Let's say for the long signal, really what we're looking at for the trend, I know I'm probably confusing you a little bit now, but just pay attention closely here. I want to allow one signal per retracement, essentially. And because this indicator is moving up, the 100% is moving up before it should, in my opinion, which I'm going to correct that here soon, have someone correct it for me. Really what I need to look at is when this 100% line shifts rather than the 50%. I'm sorry, the 0%, the line on top. So when that line on top shifts, I want to reset the signal blocker. So I'm going to block all the subsequent signals until that line on top shifts. Okay, well, that'll be the reset for the long, and then that'll be the reset for the short as well when it's on the low. Okay, I know that's kind of confusing, but just bear with me here as I change this. So I'll set this now to 0%. So now let's look at it. Yeah, here it's shifting. You see that? It's shifting from this bar up to this bar. And then here it's shifting up, up, up. So I don't want to get a trade for the retracement until this has stopped and it's gone flat like it has up here. Then I want to look for the retracement down to the 61.8. Does everybody understand that? Caliaboga is saying, I just got on the webinar late and I've been trying to download the fib indicator, but I don't know where. Can you guys help? Yeah, sure. Let me show you. So go to this web page, and this is the indicator right here, and you'll just click on this link. I'll add that into the chat window again, so you should be able to see the link now. Okay, so that will be the reset for the signal blocker. So now let's look at this. Let's build this thing out. So this signal blocker has multiple different resets that you can set. So let's say we want to block, I want to reset after, let's just set it to 500 bars initially, because that's not what we're worried about resetting. What we're worried about resetting is this. All right, so you see, I need to now change all of these resets. The reset means when we get a signal through any one of these, through the input, whichever type that might be, through the input, you can see here we have input and reset, and we have multiple different resets for each one. We have input signal, input no signal, reset no signal, all the way down to reset after a certain number of bars. Okay, I don't want to reset based on the input at all. So I want to take all of the inputs and change them. This one doesn't really matter, but I'll turn it off. Okay, so I want to reset based on a signal into the reset node right here. Okay, and you see that? So what I'm doing is I've just chosen a random 500 bars because that should be enough. Maybe it's not. Let's set it to 1,000. Okay, and then I'm going to be blocking all subsequent signals until this line up top shifts, until this 0% line shifts down or shifts up. So we're allowing only one signal per, I guess we could say per swing, per major retracement. So as I scroll back here now, you see we have the 0% line going flat here, and then we get one retracement right to the 61.8, turns down, we get a short, and we're going to be blocking all subsequent signals until this 0% line shifts. It does so right here where it shifts from this bar to this bar. Okay, let's find another example. This would be a good example right here. So, I don't like that though. This is something I'm going to have to eliminate. You see what's happened? So we didn't quite get the signal right here because it didn't make it all the way down to the 61.8. It's only made it into that area right there. But not quite to the 61.8. And then what happened was the 100% line shifted up to this swing, and now with it, the 61.8 also shifted up, and then it came down to it, and we get along there. See, that's not the trade that I'm looking for. This would have been the trade that I'm looking for if it would have come down a little bit further. And we can change that. We can set it to 50. We can set it to 78.6 or all three. And I think I'll do that. I'll set it to all three. But for now, how would we get rid of this signal as well? I think that increase the swing period. Yeah, but that's not the way that I want to do it. I want to do it internally in BloodHound. When I change the indicator, that will automatically not happen. I'll tell you what, rather than spending a lot of time trying to figure that out, let's build some other conditions that I wanted to go through. Let's say we want to, here, let me see, I've got a bunch of other conditions here. Bear with me a moment. Let's say the swing has to be wide enough apart. I could use that actually. That will probably filter this out as well. Let's add the ATR. I'm going to add the average true range. I'll set this to a period of 100. Let me change the color. So here, using the ruler, the 0% from the 100% is 87 ticks. Now the average true range is about 7. So that's about 10 times, 11 times the average true range, 12 times. So let's do this. I'm going to build another condition now, and I want to show, first of all, let me do this. I'm going to combine these two. So these two right here and the closing price inflection, these would be considered the trigger bar. Okay, so depending on whether we're using range bars or you know, minute, tick, volume, what have you, we'll use one or the other of these. Of these conditions here. So we'll connect these with an OR node, and I'll type triggers for this. And then disconnect the closing price inflection from the AND node, and then connect the OR All right, so now I want to build another condition that's looking at the distance between the 0 line and the 100% line. So remember, I'm looking at two different plots. I want to tell the distance between them. What do I use? I use the comparison solver. So indicator A will say 0%, 32, 0%, and then indicator B, 100%. $32, 100%, and then let's say we only want to show that range, so we'll get both a long and a short at the same time when the 100% is far enough away from the 0%. And that range should be, let's say, greater than 14 ATRs. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to change this to the large amount. I've just messed up here. I'm not doing this right. Okay, so actually 0% needs to be at least 14 ATRs away, so I need to use 14 or more. Remember, it has to be greater than 14. So if I'm using greater than 14, that's 14 or more, so that's going to correspond with the large amount here. All right, so we'll say 14 ATRs. I'll set both numbers to 14. And then this needs to be 0. I guess it just needs to be above it. So I'm actually going to get trend out of this as well. So if I'm looking at the 0%, that's on top in this case when the trend is up. So if the 0% is 14 ATRs or more above the 100%, then we'll get longs. Okay? So that's essentially going to take care of the trend for me right there. So I could really disconnect or just totally eliminate the other trend solver that we built with the threshold solver. I'll show you that in a moment. But let's just say if A is greater than B, so if 0% is greater than 100% by 14 ATRs or more, give me a long. If it's less than 14 ATRs or more, I'm sorry, if 0 is less than 100% by 14 ATRs or more, we'll get a short. This is like trying to teach, I don't know. Probably gets a little confusing for you guys if you're brand new to it, I'm sure. So now this is 0%, greater than or less than 100% by 14 ATRs or more. Okay, so does everybody understand that? Because we don't have 14 times the average true range distance between the 0% line and the 100% line, we're not allowing any trades during this time here. Essentially what this is kind of similar to would be the volatility swing, the distance between the swings, kind of similar, except we're not looking at previous swings. So we're looking at the current swing, the distance between the 0 and the 100%. If it's far enough apart, if we have a wide enough range, a big enough move, then we'll take one of these retracement trades. Does everybody follow me there? I know this is a little bit advanced to some extent. So here, the 0% is too close to the 100%. Here it's still a little bit too close, and then it gets far enough away right in here. Make sense? So now let's connect everything together. Hope your eyes aren't glazing over and you're just looking at this like, what is he talking about? Hopefully you're following along.
Just to throw a little comment in there. So what Daniel did is he's making sure that we're only trading when there's enough volatility in the market, right?
Exactly.
So he filtered out when price is just kind of chopping around, right? So that indicator, when the 0% and the 100% fib lines are close together, right, that's telling us that price is compressing and there's not enough movement in price to really trade those fib levels. So Daniel made sure that the 0% line and the 100% line is spread apart enough so that we can get, you know, a better, a higher percent, you know, a bounce off of that golden ratio, right? We want to make sure that price is moving enough, and that's when we want to trade, right? We don't want to trade the chop. So Daniel essentially just filtered out the chop in the market there.
Right. Thanks. Okay, so now let's say we want to add in, and this might be a little difficult, if I am blocking all of the subsequent signals, what if I wanted to allow a trade from the 78.6 as well? So let's say we wanted to get a signal on that bar as well, but then not the subsequent signals. Let me think about this. Let me just build it, and then we'll try to see what we can do. So let's add in the 78.6. This is the high and the low to the 61.8, so I'm just going to copy that. Copy it twice, actually. And we'll set one to the 78.6. 78.6, and I'll set another one to the 50, because I know a lot of you will want to use the 50 as well. So we'll set this one to the 50. And there we go. So now let me add this to the logic board. And in case you don't know, I'm using the center mouse wheel to zoom in or zoom out. Okay, so I'll right-click existing solvers. I'll add the 78.6 and the 50. Okay, then I just tried to add a long-short modifier. Okay, there it is. So I'll add two of those. We don't necessarily have to have these, but let me just do it anyway. Okay, so if you want to just single out the bars that are touching, then you'll have to use these long-short modifiers. Let me just briefly go over that again. So when I use a long-short modifier, it's going to single out only those bars that are touching the line. And then we get both a long and a short on every one of those bars that's touching, or within 2 ticks. Remember, we're using within 2 ticks. Let me just go ahead and set the large amount for best practice. Anytime you set the small amount to 2, you should set the large amount to the same, even if you're only using the small amount. And when I connect it by itself, you see that I'm getting shorts when it's above, shorts when the high is above, longs when the low is below. And then every bar that's straddling it, we get both a long and a short. But just to make it less confusing, I use the long-short modifier so that we're singling out only those bars that are touching. And then when I connect this one, it's going to show every bar that's touching the 50. You see? So let's not use the 50 just yet. And let's do this. We're going to use an OR node. We're going to say bar must be touching either the 61.8 or the 78.6. Okay. Now then, if I connect, let me just think about this for a moment. When I connect it now, without using the signal blocker, I'm showing every bar that's touching the 61.8, well, every reversal that's happening after a bar that has touched the 61.8 or the 78.6. But let's say I want to block just that bar and then all the subsequent bars after this one. It's going to be a little difficult. Let's say I have to think of a reset here for this one. I'm going to have to divide these up actually. So I'll have to make this one signal and then this a separate signal, and I'll have to block all subsequent bars from the 78.6, but then only, I know exactly what I can do. Okay. So I'm going to split these up into two signals. And I'll use that 78.6 as a reset, which will also be a signal. It's confusing, I know, but watch how I do this. Then I think after I finish this, then we'll call it a day. So we'll have one for the 61.8. And really, I don't need this necessarily now because I have the trend defined. Yeah, never mind. Let me just make it simple. I'll just keep it like this. I'll bring this one below. Okay, so now out of both of these, the one on the top, we're showing the bars that are touching the 61.8 with the trend, and then the one on the bottom, we're showing the 78.6. So I'll name this 61.8, and then 78.6. Okay, and then let's see. So we'll use another signal blocker. I wonder if I can do this a little bit differently. I think I need to have them separate, but let's see. I'll connect. I'm going to try this two different ways here. It's going to be a little confusing until I get it exactly like I want it.
Well, Daniel's thinking about this. I just want to throw the comment in there. You know,
sure.
As some of you long-term, Friday workshop attendees have seen me do. This is a classic example of don't expect to get a system that you built correct the first time, right? You'll find that as you're building stuff and you're thinking about your rules and your conditions, you'll quite often find that you'll go through several different iterations as you're putting a system together, right? So don't put too much pressure on yourself to try and get it right the first time, right? What you do is you start off with an idea, and you look at it, and you kind of go, yeah, you know, I need some little adjustments, I need some little tweaks. You make those, and you go, well, you know what? Maybe there's a better way, you know, that I can build another condition. So you kind of go through this iteration process as you're, you know, as you're building, you know, a complex BloodHound system or a complex trading system. You know, expect yourself to go through several different iterations as you're experimenting with, you know, different ideas. You know, in other words, when you're experimenting with different solvers and different conditions. You know, so that's what Daniel's doing for you. You know, he's letting you watch him live as he's kind of going through and the experimental process, you know, right in front of you, to kind of, you know, give you an idea of, you know, what the process is like. So,
right. Perfect. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to block the here. I need to do these completely independently. I'm going to have to do it like so. So I'm building the signals totally independently. I have one signal for the 61.8, another signal for the 78.6, because I have to block them individually. I have to block the subsequent signals that occur independently so that I can get one signal from the 61.8, and then if it breaks and goes lower to the 78.6, I could get another signal out of the 78.6, but then none after that point, okay, until the 0% line shifts. And that will all become clear after I put this all together. Okay, so this is the 61.8. I may be able to go through and clean this up a little bit after I get everything together and try to optimize it a bit as far as performance. I may not need so many AND nodes and whatnot, but let's just kind of see how this is going to look for each individual solver. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to block from the 61.8 all the subsequent bars until either we get a signal from the 78.6 or the 0% shifts. So I'm going to have two resets for the 61.8. I'm going to have this reset right here, which is the 0% shifting, and I'm going to have a signal from the 78.6 shift it, reset it. Okay, so watch how I do this. I'm going to use an OR node for the 78.6 signal. Let me just write that out. 61.8 signal. Yeah, I think this is going to end up being much better than what I had originally wanted to show. Okay, so this will be the reset, and we're going to block, let's just set it to 1,000. Really, all we're worried about doing is resetting the signal blocker from these resets, from these two signals, from the output from this solver and the output from the 78.6 signal. So I need to now go through and change the resets for the signal blocker. Input no, reset signal yes. Input opposite signal no. Okay. So we have the 78.6. We're blocking until we get that signal right there. Let me set that output. Blocked output of 0.5. So I want to now allow this signal. So here's what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to connect. This is getting complicated. I'm going to connect from the signal blocker to the 78.6, and that's what I want to see right there. So I want to see the original signal from the 61.8, and then the next signal only from the 78.6, or not until the 0% line shifts. Now what I need to do is use this signal blocker from right here. But I need to allow, let me think about that. I need to allow two possible trades. So I need to use a counter and an if-then. This is going to get complex in a hurry. Well, it's already complex. Let me see. I need to be able to allow the two signals. So what if I do this? What if I say allow this one? And that one.
I think you just want a signal blocker.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to use the counter.
Daniel, I think you just want a signal blocker in front of the 78% as well. So block each fib line
Yeah, you're
separately.
right. Yeah, you're right, exactly.
I think that'll achieve what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And then, now see, I'm still getting that one there. That's the problem.
That's because you have this 78%.
Because I've reset this blocker. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But see, I have to reset it based on the 78.6 so that I can allow that 78.6.
No, you don't. It's
No?
only blocking the 62%.
This one.
Correct.
So you're saying don't use the OR node, just use
Correct.
this?
Yes.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. What would I do without you, Zach?
Well, it's a little nerve-wracking when you're under the gun and you got people watching you. So
Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
Perfect. Thanks, man. Yep, that's it. Cool. So we could do, I don't know if you would want to, let's say, do we have time? I really don't have time. I'll add that in before I put this template up for download. I'll add in the 50% line for you guys as well. And then I'll put this up on the website, and all of you guys can get on there and download it. I'll let you know when it's up. So let's go through and just look at some of these signals. So we have, starting from the far right edge, you see that? Not quite allowing a signal there. Now this might be a case that we would want to make allowance for. Let me turn these blockers output off. Not that one. So you see how I did that? You can turn on the blocked output out of the blockers right here, just so you can see how far you're blocking the signal. There we go. Okay, so this is, you see what's happened? If this would have touched, the very next bar is not touching, but it's also not a reversal bar. That reversal bar didn't come until the next bar. So really, I need to extend this by a total of 2 bars, so I need to set it to 3, just in case that happens exactly like it did there. Now, how many ticks is that? From the low is 98 to 94. That's 4 ticks. Maybe we could use a percentage of the ATR rather than ticks. 10. So we could use half of an ATR. Let's do that. Instead of using ticks for whether the line is touching the fib or not, I'm going to use ATRs so that this will be, you'll be able to transfer this from one time frame to the next without having to change the number of ticks. So we'll just use half of an ATR. 0.5. So this way, you know, if you're using a 60-minute chart, you won't have to change it to 20 ticks. It'll just take half of the average true range of a 100-period ATR, average true range output. Okay, let me change that inside for the 50 as well while I'm doing it here. Okay. 0.5. So see, now we are allowing that signal right there. Much better. Cool. All right, let's go through it and have a look. Yeah, see, it's shifted up right here. So then it's been reset, and it's allowing that first retracement right there because it has been reset because the 0% shifted up. All right, so we're allowing one trade from the 61.8 and one trade from the 78.6. Yeah, of course you do it independently. I don't know why I was trying to make it so complex. And then a beautiful short there. This is what we want to allow for. I wonder what, maybe a full ATR. What is the low? 51.46. Yeah, that'd be about 3/4 of an ATR. Or no, that'd be a full ATR there. Like I said, I'll add that in for the 50, but see, if we add it in for the 50, you're taking a long right here as opposed to down in here. You know what you could do, what might make this even possibly more accurate, let's just see. Maybe adding in a divergence signal so that you're only taking divergence from the area. Let's just see what that would look like if we have RSI divergence here. I'm sure we do on this bar, but probably not as often as we would. I doubt we would get as many signals, but of course you do have bullish divergence right there in the RSI. So I might add that in. You actually have it right here as well, barely. Let's see. You don't have it here though, and you don't have it here. A lot of good looking signals out of this so far, and there's not very many, but that's, in my experience, that's a good thing. Usually the more signals you have per day, the worse the system's going to do, as far as what I can tell. That's a good looking one right there. Let me take this ATR off. Yeah, not bad. Of course. course, that is at 8 o'clock at night. Probably a loser. Yeah, that was 2 losers, I'm sure. But anyway, that's a good introduction, at least, into using automated fibs in BloodHound. So a nice little tool for you guys to experiment with. Hopefully you can come up with something good. This is just really just the tip of the iceberg as far as the different conditions you could build with this. You could combine this with all sorts of different price action conditions or higher time frame stuff. You could, like I said in the beginning, add one larger and one smaller. So let's say this is a 32, you could then add a 12 or a 16, and then maybe one up around 48. Try to find when you have, let's say, a 50 and a 38.2 touching, overlapping, to try to make a kind of a fib confluence zone within BloodHound. So you can really do a lot of stuff with this. So a nice little tool for you guys to get in there and try to build some new systems and test some new ideas. So I think I'm going to have to call it a day right there. I've got a meeting in about 9 minutes I've got to prepare for. So if you guys have any questions, I'll try to answer some questions if you have any over the next couple of minutes. And I'll, yeah, you're welcome, guys. You're welcome, Brant, Frank, Philip. Let's see, I think Zach will have a recording up on YouTube eventually. I'll have one up on my site here pretty soon, and then I'll have the template for download on my site. I'll give it to Zach as well. He can put it up on the Shark Indicator site, and you'll have the indicator here under free NinjaTrader indicators, and then if you go up here to free downloads, you'll see the BloodHound templates. I'll put the webinar recording and the template here for download right in here, okay? So, no questions? Hey, Don, how's it going? Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome, John. My pleasure. All right, guys, if there's no more questions, Zach, do you need to say anything? If not, we'll just call it a day.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you go. And, I'll field some questions here. So we'll let Daniel go and get back to work. And I'll take over from here. We'll just jump into just a regular workshop training. So if anybody has any questions, so
did you record it on your end as well?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So of course, this is a Friday workshop, so the recordings will go up in the usual space up on YouTube, and it'll show up in that new list of that we're building here for the workshops as well. And Daniel will have to email that template to me that he just built, along with the chart template. So
Sure.
I'm sure I'll get that later on this evening, and we'll have those available probably by the weekend or something like that. So
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel.
Yep, my pleasure.
Yeah, that's really cool. So just
Okay.
a reminder, guys, if you want that fib indicator, you do need to go to Daniel's website. If you don't have an account on his website, you can just create one for free, and then that will give you access to the indicator. And also, when Daniel updates the indicator, you'll get an email notification that it's been updated, so you can get the latest version. So,
yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and that'll be soon. Hopefully I'll get it updated within the next few days.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Okay, you got it. My pleasure. Take care. Bye, everyone.
All right. Let me switch over
Sure.
my screen. All right. Wow, we had a really good attendance today for this. This definitely has caught a lot of people's attention, and it's been a long time coming. So, the reason why that hasn't been done sooner is because there just hasn't been any good free indicator out there. So, until Daniel had one built. So, all right, let's see. So I'm just looking to see if there's any questions here. All right, so RJ, Daniel's hoping he can get it changed in a couple of days. So Daniel's not a programmer. He's having someone else work on it for him. So, all right, so Tom is looking to identify higher lows and lower highs, and he wants to combine that with the stochastics indicator. Yeah, so he's kind of filtering these higher lows and lower highs with the stochastics indicator. And so let's see, he wants the stochastics to be above 80 for a buy, and let's see, he says below 80 for a sell, but he probably means below 20 for a sell. So I'm going to make an assumption here, make a modification to this, and get some things out of the way. Alright, so I'm just going to reset my chart here, and oh, actually, shoot, let me reset the chart again. I needed that stochastics, so I do need the stochastics here. Alright, I'm just looking to see if Tom had given me any kind of indicator settings, and I think he's just using the standard settings for the stochastics, so that's good. Alright, so next thing I will need to add to my chart is let's see, actually, so Tom had said the SI swing, but I think what Tom wants is the swing high low. So keep in mind when you're kind of asking about using an indicator, right? We have two indicators, and the names are kind of similar. So please make sure you kind of clarify precisely which one you want, right? So the swings indicator, if I add that on the chart, that looks, it gives a nice kind of visual on the chart. Right? So, and all right. So I'm going to take, I'm going to show you what's actually available inside this SI swing indicator. So let me I'm just popping the indicator inside of any solver, just so we can analyze what's inside of it. Alright, so we can see there's a bunch of data series that's available inside the SI swings indicator. But one thing we'll notice is that, right, the higher lows and lower highs is not available in this, right? So this indicator came from Dorshand up on Big Mike's, and what we had to do is Dorshand gave us permission to use this inside of BloodHound. So if you want the full indicator, which will have, I think the full indicator has more stuff available to it, you can take a look for it up on Big Mike's. And let's see, I think the original name is the price action swing indicator, right? So what I was pointing out is that actually the SI swings doesn't have it didn't have these higher lows and lower high points actually coded or exposed, for BloodHound to read, or didn't have any of that information exposed for another indicator to read. So we won't be able to use this indicator per se. We're going to have to use the swings, highs, lows. Alright, so let me just undo that, and we'll pull this off the chart. And instead, we're going to use the swings, highs, lows. So let me add that on there. And I'll just use the default sensitivity here. I think that ought to be just fine. And what I want to see on the chart is my widest tops and the widest bottoms. Let's see. Actually, no. Sorry. Let me correct that. Tom is looking for higher lows and lower highs. So we actually do want to see the tightest tops, right? So we can see we have tightest tops and tightest bottoms. So we do want to see these intermediate swing points. Okay, so just as a quick explanation, these widest plots are the very highest high and the lowest low, you know, within our look back period, right? So the number of swings is our look back period. So so looking back 3 swings, the widest bottoms and tops is going to be identifying the highest high and the lowest low looking back 3 swings. But since we're also looking for the higher lows and lower highs, in other words, you know, the swings, you know, the intermediate swing points, we also want to take a look at our tightest plots as well. So the tightest plots give us those swing points intermediate. So if we're looking, you know, at this higher high and this lower low, these tightest plots would kind of give us this, you know, this intermediate swing point in here. So let's turn these on as well. And all right, so I'll make the tightest plots a dot so we can distinguish the two. And let's take a look, see how that looks. The trick is to get these two so that it's very easy to distinguish between the two. I'm just going to adjust my plots a little bit. All right. Hopefully that does a good enough job there. All right, so if we take a look at this, so we can see the dotted plots here, the dotted blue plots, or actually they're green, kind of identified this intermediate high or this lower high, and then price came down. And we can see the red dot identified this lower, what would that be, a lower high right there. Right, so we're going to use both of these plot lines here to identify higher lows and lower highs. All right, and let's see, let me find a nice place to work. All right, this looks like a nice area here. Visually, it looks, yeah, visually it looks pretty good, easy to identify. Yeah. All right, so we can see, right, we had a lower high here, and we had a higher low here. Right, and we can see the dotted plots are identifying those points. So that's what we're looking for finding here. Okay, so give me a moment. Just going to read the question again. All right, yeah. So the first step is identifying our higher lows and lower highs. So we'll build that using a comparison solver first. And the way we can identify when we get this lower high, the way we can identify that is if we look at the indicator, right? So hopefully you guys can see the dot. Actually, maybe I need to make my dots a little bigger here now that I've made the bars wider. So let's make the dots a little bigger. Alright, so you guys can see, right, the dots step down, right? So the dots move down. So the indicator is saying that, you know what, these tightest highs have changed. And it's changed to identify, right, this lower high. So that's what we're going to detect inside of BloodHound. We're going to detect when this dotted plot line, when it steps down. And so to do that, we're going to use the comparison solver. Alright, so let's see, what shall I call this? High or low, lower high, let's see, with a stochastics, let's see, 80, 20, confirmation. All right. So let's put a comparison solver on here. Okay, so let's kind of step through this. So if this is happening in real time, right? We step through, so we can see the indicator plot is right. The dots up top here. We'll step through one more, and then the indicator steps down, which finally identifies our high point there. Right. So this is what we're looking for, is when this indicator steps down. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put the swings high-low indicator in both indicator A and in the indicator B section here. Let's go set those up. All right. I was just I was using the default settings, so I don't need to change any of my settings here. And let's see, I'm going to be using the tops to generate a short signal. So remember that the dotted blue lines are the tightest tops, are the dotted blue lines. And so I'm going to be using the tightest bottoms to generate a long signal, right? So when the tightest tops are stepping down, that's when I want to generate a short signal. So we have the short checkbox selected there. And I'm going to do the same thing in indicator B. Set this up exactly the same. Just like that. So once again we're using the tightest tops to generate a short signal. Alright. And you'll notice we don't have anything yet. And that's because what we need to do is we need to compare the current bar to one bar back. So we're comparing the current bar to one bar back. And so there we go, bingo. We can see now when the plots are stepping down, we got that short signal there. Right? And same thing over here. So we got our plot line stepped down, and it gave us a short signal identifying that. All right. So there's the first part of our condition, our kind of trade setup. So the next confirming indicator that Tom's using is our stochastics, and so Tom wants for a short, I believe Tom wants the stochastic to be below 20, not below 80. So let's build that condition that identifies when our stochastics is below 20, or let's see, let's go forward here. So here's our other point here, and so we also want to find out when the stochastic is above 80, right? So the stochastics, right, the stochastic and the MACD, right, they run in their own subpanel on the chart, right, because they have their own scaling, right? So the stochastic has a fixed scaling from 0 to 100. So any kind of indicator that has its own scaling, typically that's when you want to use the threshold solver. So what we're looking for is we're looking for this 20% threshold and this 80% threshold level. So let's change this over to our stochastics, and we're just using the default settings. And let's see, Tom is using the %D, so that's good there. And so let's see, we're looking for the 80%, and we're also looking for the 20%. Now keep in mind, as Daniel has stated, these numbers have to be in descending order, so I can't leave these zeros in here because they're no longer in descending order with the 20 right here. So I'm just going to pick a number in the middle. It doesn't really matter too much, but I guess typically you probably get the best results if you pick a number in the middle. And let's see, so for long signals here, for a long setup, we're interested when the stochastic is above 80. So we can see here the description says greater than 80 for a long output, greater than 80. That's when we want a long output. It's when it's greater than 80. And so there we go. We can now identify when our stochastic is above 80%, like so. And you'll also notice, right, we have this kind of analog or fuzzy logic output, right? And so what BloodHound's doing is it's creating a ratio from 50% to 80%. So when our indicator is at 50%, so let me just kind of drop this approximately on 50% here, right? So we can see as soon as our indicator crosses above 50%, we start getting this output here, and that's from the fuzzy logic part. So this fuzzy logic allows you to build in, you know, some subjectivity into your trading rules. So you can, what that does is that allows you to build into BloodHound a set of trading conditions where something can be close enough. You know, so as we know, price never moves exactly, right? So as Daniel explained, one of those, there was one point where the price didn't quite come down to the 62%. It got close, but didn't actually touch it. So technically, it didn't work out. But with BloodHound, right, you can use the fuzzy logic to say, well, if something gets close enough, it's good enough to take a trade from. So that's what the fuzzy logic part's for. But I think I'm gonna what's the word I'm looking for? I think probably Thomas is looking for a fast and hard rule, So we want to take out, this fuzzy logic part. We want to take out the subjectivity to it. So I'm going to change B to 80, and there you can see that got rid of the fuzzy logic part. And so I'm also going to change D to 20. So I have 80 and 80, 50, 20 and 20. And so now the next thing we need to do is set up our short output. So we're only interested in shorts when the stochastic is below 20. So we go less than 20. We can set that to 1. And there we go. We can see whenever the stochastic is below 20, it identifies that. And so the next step, right, we have our two conditions, and let me put a proper name on here. So we're finding the, let's see, a lower high and a let's see, a higher low and a lower high. Yeah, and this is looking for our stochastic 2080. So most likely, I think we just need to join these together with an AND node. And let's see what we get. All right, so we do get a trade signal there, a nice step down. And so look here, we didn't get this long signal. So we did get the indicator to step up, but something happened here. So let's take a look at the individual solvers. All right, so our higher low and lower high. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to take out that and percent, and let's just put all right. So our let's see, our higher low is identified on that bar. So let's take a look at our stochastic condition, and so we can see our stochastic condition happened one bar late. All right. So this is another part of what Tom had asked for. Is Tom wanted to allow for an 8-bar exception between the two conditions. So I guess so from the time that our swing point, right, our higher low is identified, Tom wants to allow at least 8 bars to go by to give the stochastic time enough, right, to move into the 80%. So let's see, I'm using 1 minute bar, so I don't know, maybe Tommy's using, he might be using different bar types that for some reason might take up to 8 bars, you know, so after this higher low is identified, it might take up to 8 bars for the stochastics to catch up. So we need to kind of add this exception here. So what we need to do is take the signal that identifies this higher low and extend it forward 8 bars. And we can simply do that by just using the signal extender. So we can plug that into the input. And let's see, so we just need to set this to 8, set the reset after to 8, right, and we can see it extends it forward 8 bars there. Let's see, it might be a good idea to use some of these resets. So let me just take a look through here. Oh yeah, here we go. Good example here. So we can see that our indicator detected a lower high, and therefore it gave us a short, right, a short output from our our comparison solver. But then the indicator also at the same time detected this higher low. So look at this, right? Price just made a higher low just by a tad bit, right? And the indicator detected that, and so the indicator gave us a long signal at the same time. So we have these kind of overlapping signals here. So that may be undesired. You know, I don't know exactly how this is being used. So if we want to get rid of this overlapping, long and short situation, we can use one of these resets to do that. So let's see, I don't think, we don't want the reset signal, so I'm going to turn that off. What we want is, let me stretch this out, we want we want input opposite signal. Where is it? There we go, input opposite signal. And let me zoom in here. I'll have to stretch this out a little bit. Okay, the reason why we want input opposite signal is because we're only using the input connector. Right? We're not using the reset connector. So therefore, we're not going to use any of these resets here. Right? So we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that start with reset. Right? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these options that start with input. So the ones that start with input apply to the input connector. So if we have an input of the opposite signal, so in other words, right, so we got an input here of this short signal. All right, so the short signal came in, and then this opposite signal. So the long is opposite of the short, so this long is considered an opposite signal, and this opposite signal came in. So if we have a short in here and then a long signal comes in, that's considered, right, an opposite signal. So if we turn this to true, right, we can see that long signal that came in now, it reset or turned off. In other words, reset is kind of like a way of saying turned off, turn off, but it cleared our short signals here. So it reset our short signals. So now we don't have overlapping situation here. Okay, so now we have our signal extender set up. And now what we want to do is now connect that extender in, and there we go. Now if we look at this, right, so now so we're getting a bunch of signals in a row. So if you're just using this just to kind of identify when this state, when this set of conditions are true, maybe that's what you want, right? This tells you, as long as this state, these two conditions are both true at the same time, that's what this is identifying here. However, if you want a discrete signal, then what we can do is we, instead of using the threshold solver here, right, so if we look at this guy, this threshold solver, right, it's telling us every bar that the stochastic is above 80 or below 20. But really what the point, I think the point that Tom's really interested in is just when our stochastic crosses that 80 or when it crosses that 20. So we could replace this with a crossover, and that would give us just a one clear discrete signal instead of a whole series or of signals in a row here. All right, so okay, I'm just waiting for this crossover solver to pop up here. So for some reason on this machine, sometimes this crossover takes a little bit. All right, so let's set this crossover to look for that stochastic to cross the 80 and 20. And let's see, we're actually going to have to do this in two parts. So so we'll look for the stochastic 80 crossover first. So let me alright, just a moment. Looks like NinjaTrader's pausing on me here while it's thinking. And alright, yeah, let me reduce the number of days. I don't need that much data on the chart. And so since the chart is refreshing after changing the number of days, BloodHound's asking me, do I want to give this a name, right? So I didn't provide a name yet. So let me provide a name for this template. All right, let's see. Today is the 16th. All right, we'll just let this chart update itself. There we go. Okay, so getting back to the stochastics crossing the 80 threshold there. All right, so let's switch our indicator over to the stochastics, and we're going to use the %D. We don't need to change any of the periods. All right, now indicator B, we're looking to cross over, right, a fixed value. So we can use this absolute value here. Put 80 in there, and there we go. So we can see whenever the stochastic crosses that 80, right? Now we're only interested in the crossing, crossing up and the crossing above 80. We're not interested in this crossing below 80. So what I'll do is I'll change the evaluate to long only. So now we don't see any short signals coming out of this. So if I scroll back here, right, here's a long cross up, but we don't see any short crossing down. So that takes care of the stochastic 80 threshold. So we'll take a shortcut. Let's copy this down here. Rename this to 20. And we're looking for it to cross the 20 value. And of course, crossing that 20 is going to be a short signal. So let's change that to short only. Alright, that's set up. So let's add this new solver down here. Let's connect that up and take a look. Alright, there we go. We're crossing below 20. Looks good. Crossing below 20, that looks good. Alright, now we need to connect both of these crossovers together with an OR node, so that way it looks like it's just right one condition. So now we got cross above 80, cross below 20, cross above 80, and we're not crossing below 20 yet. All right. So there we go. So now we got one distinct set of crossover signals out of this OR node for both the 80 and the 20 level. So let's go back to our work area here. All right, so here's our work area where we're getting multiple signals in a row. And let's see. And okay, yeah, this is correct. All right. I thought we had some other short signals over here, but no, this is all correct. So, I think I'm in the wrong spot actually. Let me scroll back here a little bit. Ah, there we go. Okay. Yep, I'm a little further back in the chart. Okay. So here's here's all those short signals that I'm looking for, and here's a bunch of long signals. So now if we take out our threshold solver and just use the crossover solvers that gave us these single output, now we kind of converted it into a nice distinct 1-bar signal, which is a little better for auto trading or something like that. So, and let's see what we got. Somehow the signals here disappeared. Right, remember we had a bunch of short signals here. So let's take a look and see what happened. Alright, so our lower high, we can see it happened on this bar. So let's take a look at our stochastic. And I'll look at that. It happened 1 bar sooner. So it happened 1 bar sooner. So let's see, what can we do about that? Let's see. I could, in the crossover solvers here, so both of these crossover solvers, I have this look back period. I could set that to 2 on both of these. So we get 2 bars now for every crossover. So that might take our crossover and extend it forward enough to give us a signal. Yeah, there we go. However, now we can see that sometimes we're getting 2 signals in a row. So if that's undesired, if we don't want that, then what we can do is just use the signal blocker. We can just put a simple signal blocker in here, and it's going to be really easy to set this up because we only need to block 1 signal, right? The most we can ever get is 2 bars with signals on it, right? See, so only 2. That's the most we're going to get. So that makes it really easy to clean up with the signal blocker. So let's see, we just need to, I guess we'll just reset after 2 bars. Take a look at that. And let's see, we're not using the reset connector. So let me zoom in here. So looking at the signal blocker, right, it also has this reset connector, and we're not using the reset connector, so we can just turn that off. Yeah, you could leave it on, it's not really going to do anything, but and let's see, input no signal, yeah, we can leave that true, and input opposite signal. I doubt we would ever get an opposite signal that quickly. But we can leave that true as well. So there, that kind of cleans it up nice. One nice clean signal there, like so. Alright, so it's definitely a couple of ways to build something like this, depending on exactly what you're looking for. Right. Let's see. Actually, here, what we can do is we can build 2 sets of signals here. Let's see. Let me just, let me organize these a little bit. Okay, so out of one of these AND nodes, we can see when just the conditions are met. It'll give us as many bars as as both the conditions are met. And from this AND node, it's just going to give us a nice clean single one signal. There we go, just like that. Okay, all right. I think that covers it for Tom. All right, so let's see. Let me see if there's any other questions in here. Let's see. Can you speak on any of the specific complexities of building an indicator that is capable of sharing well with BloodHound? Yeah, I guess I can touch on that for a little bit. So, in order for an indicator to share its data with BloodHound, NinjaTrader has several ways to do that. One is, all of NinjaTrader's indicators just have a standard plot, right? So, the standard plot can be read by other indicators. So if I want to use the stochastics data inside of another indicator, right, the secondary indicator can just read this plot line. So, and that's what BloodHound's doing. So BloodHound is just reading this plot line, right? All of these are plot lines. There's also some other ways that an indicator can share its information, and I'm not going to go into detail because this gets into programming, which is a topic that we don't cover. But as I showed previously, let's see. I'll just drop a threshold on here. And so, as I showed earlier, the SI swing indicator, right? These are not plots. These are data series. So you can use a data series or a bool series to share the information with BloodHound as well. Let's see. I think there are some indicators that do that. Some public ones. So some of these ANAs here. Let's see, which ANA indicator is it? Oh, by the way, if you would like these ANA indicators, Daniel has packaged them all together in one nice, convenient zip file that can be imported into NinjaTrader. So you can get all of these ANA indicators from one source from Daniel's website. So he's made it nice and convenient. It's a little easier than going to Big Mike's or NinjaTraders and downloading them individually. So, and let's see, where is it? The Supertrend. Yeah, there we go. So this ANA Supertrend. So you can see it has a data series and it has a bool series. So this bool series identifies an uptrend, and it has plot lines. So these are basically the three common ways, really the only three ways that indicators can share data between each other. All right, so this is what NinjaTrader has created so that you can take indicator data and share it with your strategy or share it with another indicator, right? So that's how you do that. So, and I also have a Google document that I put together for programmers. So Andre, if you'd like a copy of that, just send us an email to support, send a support email in asking for that document on making indicators compatible with BloodHound, and we'll send that to you. So, okay, so RJ is asking, what's the difference between a BloodHound template and a NinjaTrader template? Well, I guess template is really just kind of a fancy name for file, right? So in BloodHound, right, you save all this information, gets saved to a file, right? And so we're kind of following NinjaTrader's terminology in using the term template, but really when you save your BloodHound system, right, you're just saving it as a file, right? It's just a file that you're saving it to. And then NinjaTrader, they have their own templates or files. And so if you right-click on the chart, right, you can see you have these chart templates. These chart templates, right, are so you can load up charts with all your indicators on them quickly and easily, without having to put the indicators on there individually one at a time. You can just save a chart template and then load that chart template later, right? So, right. So that's the difference there. Okay. Yeah. So the NinjaTrader chart templates. So whenever I end these workshops, I always go in and I save a NinjaTrader chart template. So that way you can just load that chart template up, and it puts all the indicators and the BloodHound indicator on the chart as well. So just to kind of give a little explanation, right? So, right, I'm looking inside my NinjaTrader 7 folder, and you can see there's a templates folder in here, right? So under Documents, My Documents, there's a NinjaTrader 7 folder, and then there's a template folder. I can go in here. You'll see there's a BloodHound folder and a chart folder. So obviously the BloodHound files go in this BloodHound folder, and the NinjaTrader chart templates go in their chart folder. So, all right. RJ is asking, how can we get the toolbar? Yeah, this toolbar here is available on NinjaTrader's download area and from Big Mike's. I'm pretty sure it's in both areas there. So it's just called Toolbar Shortcut. So just search for Toolbar Shortcut. Yeah, very handy. I love this toolbar. With that, I will say goodbye, and you guys have a good rest of your Friday, and have a great weekend, and I hope to see you guys next week. All right, bye-bye, guys.